Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Sisters Chat. We are so excited to have you back for another episode. And usually, I would say we have a great catch up, and I like to see what's going on with my sisters, but not this week, girls, because we are not going to keep the Rosh Yeshiva waiting. That's right. You heard it right here first. Rabbi Gershon Avtzon, our older brother. I would say the apple of our parents' eye, but Menucha's here too, so I need to be more careful. And we did family placement last week, so we can't go too far there. For the most part, our esteemed, beloved, and actually hilarious brother, Gershi, is here to join us on this week's episode. And I think this is so exciting because the Sisters Chat has now officially taken over the family. Like, there is no stopping. Let there be a lesson for every other sibling out there. You will end up on the podcast. Gershi is just being Nachshon here. He is coming on first. And we couldn't be more excited to have our dear older brother, the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva's Lubavitch, Cincinnati. He's also a prolific author. We're going to link some of his amazing work in the show notes. He has his own podcast, girls, which he is very humble about. I didn't know this till I was putting in Avtzon in podcast. Gershi, you'll tell us about your podcast as well. But most importantly, he is the author, yes, of those COL Live articles that everyone talked about for 2 years. But Gershi, we used to be the sisters of the boy who wrote articles. Let's be honest. The tables have turned now. Now you are the brother.
I am the brother of the Sisters Chat.
And how do you feel about this new plot twist?
Well, it's just amazing that you girls are enjoying yourself so much and that other people get to enjoy it with you. And to me, the opportunity to speak to my sisters and they allow me to educate them publicly is just simply amazing.
You couldn't say no.
I couldn't resist.
Well, we are very grateful because every second of Gershi's day is really dedicated to his students. So he's coming on here to have a wonderful conversation about Chinuch today, about education, about all things that we feel, to be honest, many of us are educators. And like our Bubby always says, she was a teacher, mommy's a teacher, we're good teachers and our children. But something that I know for myself as an educator, I always speak to Gershi for questions that I have, not only for your perspective, Gershi, but also I do know that you are super knowledgeable and have spent so much time studying the Rebbe's Haras on education, and that nothing you say is really without that perspective as well. So I am very excited to welcome Gershi to the podcast to have a great conversation about what education is like today, what it means to, send your son away to a yeshiva, what it's like running a yeshiva, and really all things, education that I feel like will resonate with our, with our audience. And we're so happy to have you. We're so excited to bring up the tough questions. This chat is not easy. It's not just around the kitchen table. We're going to make it
You're making as if that's easy either.
But most importantly, we know you as our older brother, and someone we love to visit, someone we call, this is for Mushki, whenever we commit to a speech, that's for sure. Whenever we need to send our sons away to yeshiva, Gershi knows he has Yaina on for 2033, whatever year it is that he'll be coming.
Lock in current rates.
We're locking in the rate today. And Gershi told me to do a PSA for everybody. Baruch Hashem, he's here because he wants to educate. But, you got to apply the regular way. Do not contact sisters to get into the yeshiva. Is this true?
And do not write the Sisters Chat on your application form.
How did you hear of our yeshiva? It should be your son's Rosh Yeshiva. It's probably your best bet. For all, Mushki, you have to help me here. For all of our advertisements, we say you heard it on the Sisters Chat. Here, do not say you heard about Yeshiva's Lubavitch, Cincinnati on the Sisters Chat. After you hear Gershi, you're going to want to entrust your son into his hand and his heart, because I really, truly believe, Gershi, that you are one of the most passionate educators out there. And I know that this is what you live and breathe. Like we always say, you had other choices, but you chose to make chinuch your mission. So I'd love for you to just to go back and tell us, a little bit about yourself, what you're passionate about, and what I actually want to know, because it was so long ago. I think you're celebrating 18 or 20 years. I remember you had a big dinner. Why did you choose to go into chinuch when at that time, I think most of your friends were really going on shluchas? Like, what drew you to that field, and specifically to running a mesivta, which is a high school for, Chabad boys in Cincinnati, Ohio?
Well, thank you again for the opportunity to be here. Privilege, honor, and pleasure. Mamish, a family get together. And I really don't want to make this podcast about me and my history and things that go in that way. But just in short, the truth is that
we're Avtzons. It's all about us. Okay. You can be real on this podcast. That's what the Sisters Chat is about.
Fair enough. At the same time, the truth is that I did not choose chinuch. Chinuch chose me, and I'll explain what that means. I, like many people my age, were brought up and were completely in on moving on shlichus, like you said. For those which are unfamiliar, the way it works in the Chabad system, contrary to popular belief, that
our reach is not that far yet, Gershi.
I told him about Muncie. He knows it's far.
Oh, okay.
That people, there is a central office that pays for like the first 10 years of a couple going to a city, and they're waiting for people and they have places for people. It's not that way. You have to find your own place, see if there's no other shliach around that area, get permission from the local shliach or the head of state to move to that city and really raise your own money to go there from day one. And you're asking, why would someone want to do that? For many Chabad couples, there's nothing else in the world that they would even think of doing. It's the honor of their lifetime to serve as the Rebbe shluchim. And when I got married to my wife, that was
Shout out to Premi.
Yes, that was really in the cards. And, we had these different ideas, and we were very close to a remote city. It was probably many people in your audience have never heard of Salem, Oregon, which is the capital of the state of Oregon. It sounds very exciting, the capital city, but a very, very small shtetl. And in truth, that was good enough for me and for her, finding a city. And I was close with the Wilhelm family, the Het Shluchim in Oregon. That itself was, that was fine. And the fact that it was in the United States, even if it's at the tip of the United States, made it even easier to think of. But when we wrote a letter to the Rebbe about this idea and asking a bracha to continue, in short, I got an answer from the Rebbe in the Igros Kodesh, where the Rebbe says that you've been successful until now dealing with the youth and educating the youth. I'm so happy to hear that you've decided to continue in that field. And I knew right away that I would have to switch whatever I thought my life would be and really move into chinuch. And with making a long story short, the idea was to create a yeshiva, and b'hashgacha pratis, we ended up in Cincinnati, which just to this year is 50 years. The Rebbe had started a yeshiva in Cincinnati 50 years ago. Unfortunately, it closed a year later. Many people thought, the Rebbe started a yeshiva and it fell apart. I feel the Rebbe was planting the seeds that, 35 years later, the yeshiva of Cincinnati would come back and live off the investment and the sweat that the Rebbe sowed into the city of Cincinnati.
Gershi, I remember when you started the yeshiva around the desk in 547, and we had a brother Sruli, and we signed him up right then and there, and they said, students are already in the yeshiva. We already accept.
We have a waiting list.
We have a waiting list. So now when people text me like, is Gershon Avtzon, Rabbi Gershon Avtzon, your brother, could you put in a good word in for my son? It's always so cute, because I just remember like Sruli had no idea where Cincinnati was. We're like, you're going, you're the first student.
Absolutely.
But that's
20 years ago.
Amazing that, you really have that bracha from the Rebbe from 50 years ago, where you knew a yeshiva had to be there and it had to last.
There's a lot more to that, but this is not for now.
So what would you say, like the guiding principles of what you started your yeshiva with, or even what it looks like today? What are the most important things as a Rosh Yeshiva that guide you into how you develop your curriculum, your staff? What are I would say to you, the main ideas that you've drawn from Chinuch and said, this is what I need to create. This is what was missing, and that's what I'm starting over here.
So if I would give you my elevator pitch, just
Basically,
to make it very, very short,
I have one son, sell it to me.
If I had one, to explain to someone what we were looking to create, and, at this point they say your students are your best advertisement, which maybe we'll talk about later about parents that are looking for yeshiva. If you're sending your son because you saw a nice advertisement, think again. That's not what you look for. In general, when in the world of yeshivas, which Baruch Hashem is growing, and every time a new yeshiva opens, I say Baruch Hashem, another group of boys can be serviced. And I encourage anyone, there's so many Talmidim, open up more yeshivas. The competition is good for all yeshivas. For me, another yeshiva opening is another push to make ours stand out even more, because bring it on, Adarabah, make more and more yeshivas. The Rebbe wants more yeshivas all over and catering for all different types of boys. So the more yeshivas, the better. There's no question about that. But in general, when it comes to yeshivas, when I was growing up, and really very much today as well, there are two yeshivas. Either Bachrim are productive or they're happy. It's one or the other. What I mean by that is you have one yeshiva, well, they'll relax the standards. Oh, the boys are happy. They can, because their standards are less, the curriculum is less, the level is lower. And it's built so that Talmidim should be happy. Another model is, that you go to the yeshiva, they look like they're in a jail, and they're all tied up, and they're all serious, and you feel like you're in a pressure cooker, but at the end of the day, the boys come on time, and they're productive, they're held to a tight ship, and in the eyes of most people, it's one or the other. And we were looking to build a model where you walk in, and the boys are happy, but they're happy being productive. And the only way to do that is when the what that they're doing is instilled with the why that they're doing it. And just to give you an example of what that means, I took my family, we were in Eretz Yisrael this summer, and the first day that we landed, we went to an army base, the closest army base to the Gaza border. Like literally when we were there, we saw them shooting, and a missile flew by us. I mean, this was like for real. My kids saw it in real time. And the army base, you walk in, like the dormitories are, you think, oh, the soldiers are treated. It's like worse than any yeshiva dorm that I was in. The food was worse than any yeshiva food that I was served. Yet, and the work day was more intense than any work day for I had Bachrim in yeshiva say, Rabbi Avtzon, I'm done with the discipline. I'm done with the intensity. I'm going to the IDF. Good for you. Good for you. Just call me when you get there. The intensity of the day is so, so strong. And yet it's done with a joy. Why? Because they know their mission. They know why they're there. They know why they enlisted. A lot of the soldiers we visited were soldiers that signed up from Chutz La'aretz. And just a family shout out. There was one soldier there, not a Lubavitcher boy. And he said, by the way, you're Lubavitcher Chassid. I have $1 from the Lubavitcher Rebbe that I met a Lubavitcher Chassid, quiet, nice guy, and he gave me this $1 before I went to Israel. There's no way that you know who he is. He's just a nice, quiet Lubavitcher. I said, just tell me his name. Well, his name is Moshe Gitlin. He lives in New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
I said, you hit it on the spot. He's my first cousin. But most of the soldiers there were people from Chutz La'aretz that enlisted.
Lone soldiers.
But they knew why they were there. And because they knew why they were there, even though the day was intense and they were productive, it's with joy. Because when the what is instilled with the why, then you can have enjoyment and have an intense day at the same time. Because you know why you are here. So to me, it was very important to build a yeshiva where the why we are here is fully an integral part of the curriculum, at the same time without compromising on the values, without compromising on the productivity, and yet the positivity. Because the Rebbe told Rabbi Chadikov, the Rebbe's secretary, who was his education minister, he called him, when he went to visit a school, and he said, how do I judge if a school is good? Do I look at the curriculum? Do I look at the teachers? He said, no, you walk in the hallways and you see if the children are smiling. It's very important that there's happiness, but not happiness due to the fact that there's hefkerus and the teachers are not showing up and there's, just being happy, but that's not real happiness. That's being empty. Happiness that they're productive and they know what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Mushki and I always have this conversation. Literally, Mushki, how whenever people, they misunderstand when it says you want the students to be happy, it doesn't mean they're not learning. They only feel good when they've accomplished something.
No question about that.
Do it with a smile. Like it's not, they're not mutually exclusive. They have to be done together. That is the only recipe for success.
No question.
Kids are not genuinely happy and they don't feel fulfilled also if they don't feel productive and learning. So even if they seem happy, it's more of an empty.
Not only that, you hear these stories and you laugh and say it can't be true. I've seen it. Again, this is 20 years. There are certain bachrim that over the years, you're like, you know what? You don't want to hold them accountable. If they miss the test, you don't have to call them over. They're not really shaykh. Don't pressure them. You think that you're doing them a favor by not holding them accountable on their level. And later on, they'll complain to you. You didn't call me over. You didn't hold me accountable. I know I could have done better. I wasn't worth anything in your eyes. You see, you didn't. I failed, and you didn't even ask me why. It's like, I was just trying to get you through it in a good way. No, they want to be felt important. They want to be held accountable. And I always tell the bachrim that if you go to the mashkiach and you ask him, can I go to my sister's bas mitzvah? I don't know, my brother-in-law's nephew's
Not
wedding.
anymore in Beis Rivka.
And they say, yeah, go for a week. Why not? It's a good idea. You should go for a week. Maybe there's an upshernish that extends that too. You're like, it's so nice. You got to Rosh for 10 days, stay by every Sheva brachas of my cousin. That's not a compliment. You want to hear the mashkiach say you're really important here. And, okay, we'll give you another 2 days. Like, show that you're valuable to the...
We want you back.
Yeah, there's no question about that.
I guess it's how you say it. Because, if you're like, no, this is the rule and this is it, then it could be that same thing could be taken in a different way. But I guess the way you say, no, we want you here, every day here, you're learning so much, you add so much, then they feel that.
Right. And the approach to discipline is the same way. It's not I am in charge and I have to punish you because you went against the rules. I'm here so you should be productive. And I'm doing what I can to hold you accountable because you are valuable, your time is valuable, and you're going to be successful. And a successful person like you needs to be productive.
Well, Gershi has a special name for me, 361. Speed dial. Lucky me, I have one son in the 10th grade and an incoming one next year. And yes, we already sent in our application and we even paid the deposit for the application. So, wow.
Did you do the Sisters Chat discount?
I don't know. I should have. But yeah, every time Gershi sees my number calling and no one else is calling him with that area code, he's like, hi, 361. And I think his heart pressure goes up. But besides for that, so I was very lucky, Gershi, when I was in 8th grade, all the moms, especially right around this time of year, the yeshiva application opens and everyone is, kind of figuring out which yeshiva am I going to? What would be the best fit for my son? And it's a lot of stress and it's a lot of back and forth and trying to figure out really where to send their boys. So as a Rosh Yeshiva, what would you say, is like, how do parents really know what would be the best fit for their kids? And what is something that all of us maybe stress about that we shouldn't really be stressing, like about the yeshiva system? What do you find is the most important thing to focus on? And what's something that maybe people focus on that they really shouldn't be?
So I think first and foremost, there are two things. One is that you're picking a yeshiva for your son, not for yourself. There's a lot of
Sounds like
people.
shidduchim.
There's a lot of people shidduchim, seminaries, yeshivas. What is the best yeshiva? And my son is going to the best yeshiva, whatever that means. No, it's because it makes you feel good. It's really important to know. I know my son. I'm looking. It is a shidduch because Baruch Hashem, there are so many different yeshivas, not just in places, different levels, catering to different strengths. And kula mahuvim, everything is good. And it's very important to work with the anhala of the moisid that your child is in, who, if they're dealing with eighth graders, hopefully did a lot of research and they have history with the various yeshivas, and to really find out what is the best yeshiva for your son. And more important, I would think, for the mothers especially, is to actually remember and to know what yeshiva is. They've never gone to yeshiva, and it's important that we understand what a yeshiva is, what it's made for, what it's catering for. And when you understand what the yeshiva is meant to do, so then you look for that and the trivial things fall away. I am not going to minimize the importance of a bacher being treated the best begashmis, meaning they should have good food and they should have good accommodations. There's no question. They are B'nai Malachim. The Torah and the world stands on the schus of the limud HaTorah of children and bachrim. I'm not minimizing that. But when that becomes the deciding factor, it's almost like I'm looking for my kid to go to camp and where's the best food and the best. And when that becomes the deciding factor, then we're right away off to the wrong start. The deciding factor is Toim Chetmimim, and a yeshiva in general is meant to instill Yiras Shamayim for life, instill Hadrachas HaChayim for life, giving my child the skills in learning, but even together with that, Hashkafas HaChayim, we're building this child for the future. This is going to be a future, I'm not even saying a future Rav or Rabbi, because that's not even, the point is going to be a Gestelte, Frume, Chsidish Yid, who's going to Mirza Hashem build a home. And he's getting, it's like this is when the seed is being nurtured for these years. I say for the 7 years of yeshiva, you're getting for 1 year, 10 years of your life is going to be based on those years of yeshiva. And therefore, where your
It's
child,
a 10x investment.
yeah, where your child can be developed and to get those ingredients for life, which looking back, I mean, when I went to yeshiva in Toronto. I mean, Mommy and Tati sent me there and I was so happy to go there. I want to tell you, maybe Mommy and Tati didn't know at the time. It was the dormitory. I slept on a kitchen floor on a mattress and people were filling up negovasa on top of my bed. The cupboards were my closet. I mean, the food was non-existent. And not only do I look back and say, wow, it was the best years of my life, I got a call last week from a very, very successful lawyer. He lives in Manhattan. I don't know how observant he is today, in his religious observance, but he was a bacher in the same yeshiva that I was. And he called me regarding a certain issue, and he's very successful. And he called me up. He says, Gershon, I want you to know, when I look back at my life, I live in a beautiful house and I have a beautiful family. I'm very thankful. Parnosa is very good. He has a good job. Everything fine. He says, the most geschmacke year of my life was the year in Toronto. I was cared for. I was inspired. I got a vision. This person, again, I don't know how his level, I'm not judging his level of observance, but when he sees a shliach putting on tefillin with the yid in the middle of nowhere, he gets still so excited by the koyach and the Havas Yisrael. That is his geschmack till today. And this comes from the year in yeshiva. And he said, I had nothing then. They didn't give us anything. But they gave us a mission and a vision of life. And that is priceless.
I remember visiting you and Mommy said, is this a joke? Where's your actual shirts? And you opened up the stove. This is for storage, doesn't really work. You don't forget those things.
Yeah, it leaves quite a mark, doesn't it?
Memorable Thanksgiving trip to Toronto.
I have a question, Gershi.
Sure.
Where I don't have any boys, and honestly, just seeing Nini just like starting to maneuver the boys in the yeshiva system, it's like so overwhelming as a mother. So I'm just like kind of curious because I feel like the moms want to be involved, but I feel like as a Rosh Yeshiva, you could kind of see the do's and the don'ts because you see like the other side. Like, what are kind of the do's and the don'ts that you would advise the parents when they're like sending their kids in the yeshiva system?
I think the biggest don't, and there's the big do's and the big don'ts, it really comes together, is to embrace the mission. And a lot of parents, especially mothers, have a very hard time with their cute 8th grader who they matched his bar mitzvah yarmulke and his suit. You know, he's picture perfect, and they really are like cute when they walk in. You know, the Shir Aleph. You know, they're all packed. And you can tell which mothers packed their suitcases, and they're matching and everything, and it's truly nice. And watching them become young men is very unsettling for many mothers.
Just the beard and the mustache is enough, like, you know, to throw off a mother.
No, but I'm talking about this is the year where they develop a certain idealism which doesn't actually match practical life. And you find them just having these ideas, and they're going to learn the whole Shas, and they're going to conquer the whole world, and they're going to go Mivtzayim the whole night, and they're going to learn the whole day. Like, they start coming with these ideas, and the natural feeling of a mother is stop it. You know, they want their cute little boy back, and they're not yet sure how to deal with this young adult that's developing. And I always tell parents, this has to be embraced. This is their identity coming out. They're going to calm down over life, but this is the time where you're meant to encourage. There's a fascinating letter of the Rebbe. And it's fascinating in its content, and it's also fascinating to who it was written to. There was a very Litvish Gadol. His name was the Manchester Rosh Yeshiva. If you Google Manchester Rosh Yeshiva, was a very Rabbi Segal. He was a big Rosh Yeshiva in Manchester, very good. And in 1952, he wrote a letter to the Rebbe. It was the Manchester Yeshiva, was a Litvish Yeshiva, but they had a Chassidish mashkiach, a Lubavitch. His name was Rabbi Dubov in Manchester, and somehow they had this. Those days, you could have a Litvish Yeshiva and a Lubavitcher mashkiach, and together they were molding these bachrim. And the Rosh Yeshiva was very bothered by the fact that you had bachrim that they decided they're going to get very intense about their davening, but it didn't match the rest of their lifestyle. Like all of a sudden their seder was not good, or they weren't careful about their hasmad, whatever. Like, no, you're davening at Lent is supposed to be somebody that's really involved, and somehow it didn't match the rest of their lifestyle. And his natural feeling was to calm them down and say, be real about where you're holding, stop jumping and to the next level. And he wrote this letter to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe responded. It was also the bar mitzvah of his son. His name was Pesach, who became a Rav also. The Rebbe writes to him that I'm going to share with you a perspective, and it's up to you to accept it or not. I'm going to share my view on educating young adults. And years later, he said for 50 years, he read this letter because this was his guiding principle of education. He always brought it back to this letter of the Rebbe. But the Rebbe says young adults, they are naturally, peer pressure is a very big thing in their life. When someone is ready to take a stand about something that doesn't fit with the peer pressure, even if it doesn't match what their real level, keep it going. That's going to build a fortress around. And the Rebbe says, this to me is the most fascinating line. Use it as opportunity as follows. Instead of saying, because you're not good in these areas, tone down your davening, you say, no, your davening is such a level, match the rest of your day to the level of your davening. He says, you're going to see the results are going to be life-changing. when instead of taking that craziness of the teenager and saying, stop it already, get real, tone it down, you take the rest of their behavior and you use that to match it and to elevate them, then you can really, really get the best out of a young boy.
I'm sure I was never guilty of doing that.
Well, he
You
still
see
picks up
your
your
son davening?
361 phone.
He does. Any time of day he picks up. That is true. Or it's like I get the call back, but it's my Mendel who hogs his office. So Gershi jokes he thinks Mendel sits in his office more than he does. So
I ask for shus.
Rabbi Gershon, we always hear, parents or educators saying like, ugh, the kids these days, like, they're different. They're made of different stuff, whether they're weaker, they're more sensitive. You've been in education long enough. What's your take on that? Do you see like the kids are different, or what have you seen? What's your experience? Or in yeshiva, it just stays in a bubble and that's it?
There's obviously, when you speak about the differences of generations, today it's like every 2 months. It used to be like every 20 years. There's no question you see differences, but I want to address that. But I do want to go back to the point that Hesher raised. I want to tell you girls a funny mother story. So the mothers are out there. Let me tell you this story. I don't know why I'm sharing, but
because
the
the
mothers
mothers
out
are
there.
listening.
The mothers are
listening.
listening.
I can tell you a story that I feel bad almost cost us some of our best Talmidim. A mother called to register, and in general, like many times, the fathers call to register their sons in yeshiva, but sometimes you find that the mothers are calling. It's either the mother. Most times you don't have both parents involved. It's the mother that takes the lead or the father that takes the lead.
What do you rather?
It's easier when the father calls because they actually know what yeshiva is. But regardless, this mother calls in my office and she starts like interviewing me about, the
Tell us about your
approach of the
yeshiva.
yeshiva, the well-being of the bacher, and all this. And I'm like, ma'am, I think I was supposed to like tell her like, it's not our first year. If you could see our product, we've been doing this 17 years, maybe look at our product. And then she says, would you mind if I came down and had a meeting and educated your teachers on their nurtured heart approach to chinuch? I was going to like hang up the phone. No, sorry. But I'm glad I didn't. It ended up being, and she was telling me all these things, and her sons have been here like unbelievable. It's just, they've been like, Meshich from our best Talmidim. Like,
Maybe because she uses nurtured heart approach
I'm not
at
here
home.
for what, or I was just saying, like, it was good I didn't make the judgment on the mother's.
First, I thought it was going to be Nini, but now I'm pretty sure it's not.
on the phone call of the mother, but please don't call and start trying to teach the educators how to educate. Not that you don't have a lot to say. Wait till your son is in yeshiva before you say that.
Go for like they have to go. Ayla knows they always have the teacher trainings every year and new people coming. So, I'm wondering, I'm like, in yeshiva, is there any of that? Like, do they have to bring in people? Like, I could see this mother just coming from a nice place.
No, absolutely. And the yeshivas that want to stay in tune.
Like
and I do want to give a shout out, and I want to say this with all seriousness to all the mothers that are listening. The yeshiva systems of today are infinitely better than when we were going to yeshiva, and I'll explain to you why.
I think that's so good because when I hear the word Brenois, and I don't know anyone that went or whatever, my heart starts beating. So I remember hearing the stories about like not enough toilet paper, right? Like that's all I think about when I think about yeshiva.
But Ayla, I don't know how to break it to you. It's like super popular again. Everyone is going back to Vermont. It's like,
or even like she's saying, like where the kids, we think they're learning Gemara from 7 to 9 at night, and it scares me.
But what I'm trying to bring out is that for many years, for better or for worse, our own chinuch system was based on if you were successful, you went into shlichus. Chinuch was for those that either were very brainy and they just wanted to continue their intellectual pursuits, or they by default they couldn't find a different job. But anyone that had social skills and talents, they did not go into education. I remember when I just started the yeshiva, one of the parents told me that their older son was in a different yeshiva, and he went to that yeshiva, and his son was a very quiet, out of town boy. And the son said that the mashpia of that yeshiva never called him over to just find out how he's doing because he wasn't making trouble. So he went over to the mashpia and he said, why don't you go to my son? Which, P.S., I highly recommend each father, when their son goes to yeshiva, to go at some point early in their yeshiva experience there. First of all, to get in touch with the staff when they know who you are. And more important, I know it's going to sound funny, but you're actually entering the world of your son. When he says, I was in Zal, I was in my dorm, you actually know what that is. You're actually living with him in his world. And you can connect with him in a way that you'll never appreciate. My son was away overseas for 2 years. I only went because I thought he was a big boy, 19. I went after Pesach the second year, and I actually pretty much regret. I said, should have gone earlier. And when he says I went to Avtzon, when he says my room, when he says the Zal, I know what he's talking about. I can visualize, I can actually have the experience with him. But regardless, this father goes to the mashpia and says, how come you're not speaking to my son? He's an out-of-town kid, his first time in yeshiva. And that with all seriousness, the mashpia looks at this person and he says, if I had social skills, I would be a shliach. So
That's like just never.
You know what, Gershie, but I work in Beis Rivka, and sometimes the kids always say things like, couldn't you get another job? You seem normal enough. Like, they think you're only here because you literally couldn't find. That's the attitude that people think. If you're in Chinuch, you literally applied everywhere and they said no, and boom, you're here. Like, they're always shocked to say, I chose this.
today, more and more, the yeshiva system, especially the mesiftas, the high schools, are filled with Jungalite, extremely talented, that shows this. And
That's
the
comforting.
Chinuch system is so much better because of it. This is their first choice, not I looked around for 5 years and no, this is what I want to do. And not because I can't connect with people. I could connect with people and I want to, build children. I want to build the next generation. Instead of living in a city and meeting 4 Jews, I have 25 kids that I can make frum. And even though they're born frum, but I can instill with them values for life every year. I say I make the most Bali Tshuva. Every bacher, they can be serious and frum, but bringing out their neshama, times that by 20 years, is hundreds of Talmidim that are, hopefully inspired. And that is the reason why today Jungalite choose it first. And the Chinuch system is so much better because of it. But getting back to your question about the kids of today, there's no question that to a certain extent, they're more fragile today. And I see this in myself. I have to be much more careful. It used to be by a Fabrengen, you could say a sharper word, a Fabrengen was almost informal and you can chepa a little bit, because the boys, you can bring out, mention a fault and build it and they can handle it. Today, be much, much more careful what you say, how you say it. There is no question about that. And what is that from? So on one hand, there's no question that it comes from a child's world today because of technology is fragile. Now, a lot of people don't think about this. Most people think the issue of technology is that they're exposed to inappropriate things. When you ask people what's the problem with technology, they say, oh, they're exposed to inappropriate things. And that's obviously a problem. But I'm talking about a different concept. That is, when we were growing up, at least me and some of you, like some of my younger siblings, it's good that I met you here now. It's so nice to meet you. But when we were growing up, your world was extremely stable and reliable. You didn't know what war was. You didn't know problems. You had your block, you went to school. The world's issues were not your issues. You didn't experience that, even though there was terrible things going on. There was that, all these things, war, that it didn't, filter down to your life. Your life was very stable. You had a house. Most people actually had one working parent, and they went to the same school, went to the camp. I went to the same camp for 5 years straight with my friends, same bunk basically. You went to your school. It was very predictable and it was very sheltered. And today we're being hit with information constantly and worries of the world. All the worries of the world, all the happenings of the world are all coming to you in real time. For a child, that's extremely unsettling. And a lot of children, their parents are unsettled. They're working hard. They don't have the time for them even. There's a lot going on in this child's world all at once. And I'll go even steps further. And I'm not saying it's a problem because we're dealing with things. But families, how many people had homes that were single parent was much less. Today, nothing that people take for granted when we were growing up, this is just so predictable. Nothing is predictable in a child's world today. And that builds fragile, emotional children because there's a lot being hit at the same time. And therefore, they need to be built at the same time. The children of today have special koyach. For those that think that, the best years were behind us, right? It reminds me of the Meraglim that said, we would go into Eretz Yisrael, but what's going to be with the children? The children the Eibishter gave them, the same way the challenges are bigger, they have the koiches, which are bigger, the neshamas, which are bigger. There's such amazing young men and women today. If they are educated right and inspired correctly, they can rise on levels that are unimaginable. It's hard to imagine when you see these skashers, you're talking in the Chabad terms, that we're 30 years after Gimel Tammuz, and children are growing and their passion to do what the Rebbe wants and to live with the Rebbe's koiches is just unbelievable. So they have the neshamas of Mashiach, they have it in them if we can just tap in and allow it to come out in a strong way.
You have me sold. I am sending my son there.
Sorry, I'm like, is there something you wish you could tell parents to help, like, in a way to raise their kids?
So I would share, I don't know how much you want to hear, really, but I will.
We just need a good reel, Gershi. We need a 1 minute good, snappy, sharp reel that will get us at least 10K, and we're good.
Okay,
I was going to say, I want to help my kids, but make it quick and easy. Don't say turn off your phone from 5 to 9 and make sure to take every kid out on a date. Like something we can actually do.
So I would like to share 2 nikudas, 2 points, and everyone can take it how they want, which I think is very, very important for all parents. And that is that we all, and I'm not judging anybody, we all have decided a certain level of comfort, of Yiddishkeit, Chassidishkeit, and worldliness in our life. Everyone has decided that they've picked the proper balance. Whatever that means, they have their Yiddishkeit priorities and they have their worldly enjoyments, and everyone has decided the balance that they've decided is the perfect medium for their life. And we feel that if this is the level that we are happy with, our children are going to follow and fit into that level. Anything to the right is too extreme. Anything to the left is too modern. Whatever that balance is for your life.
Like you found the perfect recipe, and we should all stay exactly here.
Sorry, someone told me something so cute. It's such a you kind of little vart, Gershi. The word from, F-R-U-M. You know what I'm about to say? There's you in the middle, the letter U. to the right, anything to the right is M, modern. Anything to the left is FR, fanatically religious. So like you just stay right there.
But the message is that, believe it or not, the level that you choose becomes the starting point for your children. And now they're going to create their own balance, because the level that you chose as the perfect medium has now become the starting right point, the extreme point, the high bar for your children. Now, not in all cases, obviously. And therefore, when we want our children to stay at the level that we thought is a good medium, believe it or not, you have to elevate. You have to be on a step higher. And the children see what our real values are. I challenge parents to ask the children to fill out. And, it was a scary moment when the Mora of one of my little kids asked their child, what does your tati enjoy? Now, you think they're going to say, learning and this and that. And you see what they write, because the kids know where your passion really, really is.
I hope he said visiting state capitals. Otherwise, he doesn't know you well.
and by putting ourselves higher, that allows our children to have that the middle ground that we actually think is normal. So always the way to bring up your children is not by lecturing them. Always by elevating yourself. Dugma chaya. I've seen this. Parents that spend their whole davening telling their kids how to daven will only raise children that will tell their kids how to daven. Parents that actually go to shul and daven, even if the kids are a little bit less davening when they're kids, they see a parent davening. They see whether when they grow up, they'll daven. They see what's important to you. The Gemara says that mitzvahs that our ancestors did with Mesiras Nefesh become ingrained in you. Like, I think about when we were growing up, Tati and Mami, they built rooms for us. If you remember, Tati built these Negelwasser things that extend from the bed, like on the top bunks.
Custom made
Negelwasser things. So you shouldn't even have to go down from the bed to wash your hands, which was like unheard of. Like I never saw someone build Negelwasser drawers or attached to the bed. But after that, how could you not be instilled the value of Negelwasser? Just for an example.
Gershi, it's so true, because I always used to ask Mendy in our Chabad house, how come everyone knows Pesach and no one knows Shavuos? Shavuos is when you got the Torah. It doesn't make sense to me. And Mendy used to always say, because Pesach was hard, and their grandmother would make everyone crazy cleaning and making the matzah. So how could you forget it? While Shavuos is so enjoyable, it's nice weather, it's good food, it was totally forgotten. Most people have never heard of that.
Never heard of it. And that's the Gemara says about Bris Milah. It was done with Mesiras Nefesh. And that's why you find for generations, Yidden in communist Russia, their husbands were communists. They were getting a mile behind closed doors. The kid should have a bris. No, there are mitzvahs that became ingrained in our DNA. Things that we do, and it costs us. And the kids see that we go out of our comfort zone for these things, become the established and unquestionable anchors of their life. And second thing, which is extremely important, is always the relationship with the child is paramount. Whatever they're going through, they have to know that their parents are their biggest believers, supporters. Their parents believe in them. No matter what they're going through, they have to hear it, they have to know it, that their parents believe in them. When they have that clarity, that will enable them to withstand everything that's coming. I know we said there's no one came to this podcast for a Dvar Torah, but I have to share something which is, I think, a life-changing message. Because we say every single day the Akedas Yitzchak, right? The Akedas Yitzchak, if you have to make the story, Avram tells Yitzchak, we're going on a trip. It's like, okay, let's go on a trip. Where are we going? We're going to bring a carbon. Oh, that sounds great. At a certain point, they drop off half the people and they start walking. And there's wood and there's a knife, right? But the problem is there is no animal, there's no carbon. So at a certain point, Yitzchak's going to have to ask the question. And what's the question that he has to ask? Where is the animal? Like, there's something missing here. It's slowly dawning on him that it might be him, right? After a while, it's like slowly dawning. We're getting closer and closer to bring the carbon, but there's no animal here. So he's prepping himself to ask this monumental question. But if you actually open up the Chumash, before he asks that, he asks seemingly a random question. It says, V'yomer Yitzchak Avram, Aviv. He turns to his father, and he says, V'yomer Avi, ta. And Avram answers, V'yomer Hineni B'ni. Yes, my son. He says, oh, I have a question. Where is the animal? But what's that first question? Ta, yes, son. Like, why is that part of the conversation? Why do we have to know for eternity that this seemingly childish question was an introduction to the main question? So the Kli Yakar writes that the main question was the first question. He wanted to know that he still has his father-son relationship. He doesn't know what's about to happen. He says, Avi, are you still my father? Are we still one? And he says, Hineni v'ni, yes, you're my son. And whatever's about to happen, it's from a father to a son. Then Yitzchak's ready to accept to be a carbon. He's ready. The rest of the story goes because he confirmed his relationship with his father.
Like we're in it together.
Is really the key of the whole Akedas Yitzchak.
It's like, are we still good?
Exactly. Are you doing this as a father? Like, have you separated, or are you, whatever's about to happen, which he's starting to realize what that might be, is coming as my father? And he says, yes, that confirmation. And when a child knows that no matter what they're going through, whatever their future is, their parents are their anchors and believe in them, they're set. They're set. It doesn't mean it's going to have a perfect journey, but they have what it takes to stand up to whatever's coming in the future.
Gershi,
Oh, yeah.
you left.
Whoa, you do have a voice. I don't know if I've heard it before.
Surprise, I'm here also. I'm your younger sister.
Youngest.
Our parents had us a little later, so I don't know if you remember when I was born, but I'm here. Anyways, you said some really important and good information, but what is something you want our listeners to leave with? What is a message you want to tell us, whoever listens? Like, what's something you want to leave with everyone before we get to the Fast Five?
The most important thing is to really believe in our children. I feel, and I see, that today many parents, we parent out of fear and we educate out of fear. In other words, really we think kids can't be successful today. We're afraid they're all going to go off the derech. That is, we parent that way. So whatever's going to keep them, we don't actually believe they can be really, really successful. At the very least, the most they can be is not off the derech. We parent out of fear, not out of belief in our children. And everyone has to realize that the Eibishter has given the children of today special koyach. I'm not going to get into all the ruchnistic things, but right before Mashiach, there's a special level of koyach.
Give us a little bit. If someone's like having a hard time with that faith, give us a little bit.
Okay, so I will share with you. You asked for it. I will share with you something which I believe.
You could have just asked for links, a book to buy. Where else could they find more?
No, because sometimes a parent's losing, you want something to hold on to.
I really believe that in 1981, the Rebbe started a revolution called Tzivos Hashem, taking children and making them soldiers, right? I was like, wow, children into soldiers. And the Rebbe had meetings and rallies with these kids. Like, what was going on? I believe the Rebbe knew that in 1994, when these kids that are born in 1981 are going to be bar mitzvah, there's going to open up a new chapter of Helem v'Hester, concealment, that we don't see the Rebbe. So he instilled koyach from 13 years before, from when they were born, instill the new generation with new koyach to be able to withstand the concealment and to have the koyach, whatever is needed until the revelation of Mashiach. And every child that's born now is born with that koyach. You have to believe it. I heard this amazing chinuch lesson from my friend Rabbi Zalman Baris, alav shalom. Heard it from his father, who was my assistant principal, Rabbi Shalom Baris. You all know Rabbi Shalom Baris. So he told his son a very important lesson in chinuch. We have to know that as educators and as parents. He said, a educator is a multiplier. We can take 1 and make it 2, 4, 8. But if in your mind the child is a 0, there's nothing you can help. Because 10 times 0 is also going to be 0.
Hello, they teach math in the boys' system. I'm much more impressed than when I started.
Bring it on.
You don't have to go down and educate them.
You have to believe in your Talmidim. You have to, and the children and your students know which teachers believe in them or which teachers are just like, oh, today's generation, they just don't get it. There's hopeless. That's not the way it used to be. What's going to be with you? Woe unto you. They know. And the ones that believe in them can multiply them and grow them. And as parents, you have to believe one of the greatest revolutions that when I was doing the research on the Rebbe's letters, and I put out this book called the Chinuch Letters. Again, it's zero profit for me.
Wait, anything you want to promote, now's your time.
I encourage everybody to.
He wants to promote it because he wants everyone to learn from it.
Chinuch Letters, because these are all letters of the Rebbe on topics of Chinuch. I get zero money from this. Put years, hours and hours and hours of research. But if you had to ask me, Gershon, what is one of the biggest novelties that you saw in the Rebbe's letters? Now, it's a very simple 2-liner. The Rebbe wrote to a parent that was struggling with his children. And the Rebbe said that the idea of tracht gut wird sein gut, which we usually say when you have problems, think good will be good, applies to your children as well. If you think good about your kids, about your students, and if you actually believe, you think positively, spend time to think good and to really believe in your children, wird sein gut. It's not just about situations in life. It's about your students and your children. And that's, to me, it may sound simple, but it's a revolution. This is an attitude change that we all have to have about our own children, about our own students. Tracht gut, wird sein gut. Hesha, do they know what you've been told since you were like 2 years old?
That I look just like you.
And how embarrassed you were all those years?
No, I'll tell you the story. I'll tell you why it was embarrassing. I went to go visit Gershi in his yeshiva in the early days. And I'm walking down the hall. I was a teenager. I was a young girl. And people were like laughing and they're looking at me. And what I heard them say is, oh my gosh, that's the female version of Rabbi Avtzon here. That was it. But Gershi, we're going to do the Fast Five now. I'm going to ask you a question, and you're going to say which sister you think fits the question the most.
You guys really do look alike.
It's not normal. I see it
Gershi,
myself.
you know who everyone is, right? You're not too busy writing books and...
Okay, question number 1. Who are you most shocked to see became an educator?
Hesha.
You have the same genes as Gershi. Why are you so shocked?
Wait, was I right?
Which sister do you think would be the hardest parent to deal with?
Adla.
Oh, I literally thought you were going to say me.
361 gets away scot-free.
I'm going to be called
just because I would come down to Yeshiva and make all those Rebbe's listen, but to you, I would be nice.
100%. I didn't say which type of sister.
Which type?
Which sister do you think would have been the best student you ever had?
Chinuch would have been the quietest.
Which sister do you think would hack the system the most?
Well, Mushki would just smile at all the teachers and just get away with everything.
With that smile, are you sure?
And here's the real question. Which sister do you think reads all your articles and maybe even leaves a comment?
Adla for sure.
Comments, Hesha, not comment. The first 10 comments were mine.
Comments and commentary. So,
But Tati for sure did the most feedback after.
But it's good. It kept COL keeping to post them, Adla.
but did you guys know that it was like a cheshbon that Gershi did it on every Rosh Chodesh? Like I thought it was whenever he was like inspired or had a thought, but no, it was a scheduled post once a month on Rosh Chodesh and an extra one for his birthday.
But literally, people would say our Shabbos table would be like, I wonder what Rabbi Avtzon will say about this. If there's like a big wedding or the streets were closed, anything, it would be like, what's your brother thinking?
Right.
And we said, you'll find out soon enough.
We all find out together. That's the fun thing about Gershi.
It was like the sisters chat about this. It was Gershi's title. What does it say? Let's talk about. So as long as it wasn't, it's time to talk about. As long
Are
as
the op-eds done?
No, they actually are. They're actually going out weekly now, but in Hebrew to the Beis Mashiach crowd, and not English. And my email.
Is that a niche crowd? So as you can see, it's not just the Avtzon sisters that have a lot to say. The brothers have probably that much more. Gershi, seriously, in all seriousness, thank you so much for taking time from, between your students and Farbrengens and your research and parents and everything that you're dealing with to share, I think, such amazing, important perspectives. That's what it is on Chinuch and what we really need to value and what we can push aside. And even though I'm in education every day, I learned something new. And I'm sure our audience will learn as well. And it's just so fun to have you on here.
It's a pleasure. And again, I want to say a shout out and thank you to our dear parents who educated us in tremendous Mesido Nesina, raising all of us, inspiring us to get involved. And of course, a special mention to our dear Bubby Gitlin, who educator per excellence, and really, as a child, schlepped us to 770, schlepped me to every dollars. Bubby stood schlepped me to the Rebbe's house when the Rebbe was in the house after the Istalkos of the Rebbetzin. In her schus, I got to attend so many Farbrengens and to be with the Rebbe. And a big thank you to Bubby, and a big shout out to all those that continue to help and support and be part of the growth of the yeshiva. And anyone that has any questions or would like to follow up anything that was said here, feel free to reach out to my email at rabbiavtzon@gmail.com.
Thank you. And I think just one last shout out is to all the amazing mechanchim we have who truly, like you said, are choosing to do it. And it's Mesiras Nefesh to go into Chinuch and to worry, inspire, and take care of the next generation. So to all the mechanchim, and to most importantly, our favorite mechanech, Rosh Yeshiva himself, Rabbi Gershon Avtzon.
Thank
But help
you.
us out, Gershi, to let everyone know to see us next week on
care.
the Sisters Chat.
That way.